Young banking industry folks are resigning in significant numbers in India. Salaries and increments across many sectors in the economy aren't what they used to be. At the same time, young people are finding it difficult to get job offers. What exactly is going on in the economy? Are all these dots independent happenstance developments, or is there a way we can link some or all of them? Let's take a look. Hello and welcome back to Business Matters at the Hindu with me, K. Bharat Kumar. Global Employment Trends for Youth 2024, a report released earlier this month by the International Labour Organization, showed that young people across the world, not just in India, are finding it tough to get a job. The report found that in low-income countries, only 1 in 5 young adults aged 25 to 29 managed to find a secured, paid job, a job with a paying employer and a contract greater than 1 year in duration. The share of young adults in permanent paid work in high-income countries was at 76% in 2023. India, a lower middle-income country, as classified by the UN, would see that percentage at 34%. And that's not a very encouraging sign considering the huge numbers of graduates coming out of our colleges every year. That's just in excess of 1 crore per year. And given how young our overall population is compared to the rest of the world. Another data point that we want to dwell upon in this episode comes from a report by Bloomberg that showed that young people in India's banking sector are quitting in droves. The data showed that, especially at the fresher level, people who come in and with probably 1 year or less of experience, attrition has consistently been above 50%. Attrition is referred to the number of people leaving per 100. For every 100 employees employed in a company, the number of people leaving the company and exiting the payrolls per year. So it's a percentage. What could be the reasons for this? We spoke to Kamal Karanth of Xfino, a specialist staffing company, and he feels that the mental preparedness or the idea with which you go into college and then seeking a job later on, there is a mismatch there. Most of these jobs, he says about 70% of job openings that freshers apply for in industry are for sales jobs. And very few of them actually go into college from school thinking that they will come out and go for a sales job, that they will be actually salespeople. Let's listen to what Mr. Karanth has to say.
I would like to believe that the Indian kids work hard. I think when I look at the generation which is coming to work, I have 310 recruiters working for me at Xfino, and I see the kids really work hard. So I don't see that there is a generational issue right now that where the youngsters are refusing to work hard. But yeah, I think when you, as you can imagine from the generation that we work with, when you put too many strictures and you say you had to work so much, they resist. And you can see that from the entry level attrition. Average attrition at entry level is 30%. Even if you look at GCCs, the attrition is in that range. So banking, clearly we saw 30 to 50% in some of the companies for the reason that beyond a point, anything which becomes extremely what do you call as top down. Or if you are putting pressure, I think today's kids are having enough options. As much as we say there are lesser fresher level jobs, there's still enough choices for them to make that they will not work beyond a point if you put them under pressure. But I would like to believe that I think the kids have already worked hard enough in India that we don't have to make more restrictions on them that you have to work so many hours. So when I look at the pressure at the bottom of the pyramid, it is high, and it is high to be taken in two contexts. One, most of these jobs are sales driven. And if you look at our college output per se, when you look at the number of BAs, Bs, BComs, BSc who are passing out, they are not cut out to come out and, at least they're not gone to college thinking I'll do a sales job.
And then cropped up the issue of salary levels for freshers after IT major Cognizant put out an advertisement inviting freshers to apply for a particular job that offered to pay about 2.5 lakh per annum. It was likely not for a software profile because later the same company said that for freshers it offered between 4 and 12 lakh per annum. But what remains a concern is that more than a decade and a half ago, the IT sector paid about 2.75 lakhs on average for freshers. That was the entry-level salary. And if you look at the increment of that entry-level salary and the average of that, it is likely not increased as fast as inflation has. And since we are referring to the IT industry as an example, let's look at how salary levels for CEOs have increased over a certain period. But that would be a nice comparison. There's always a ratio between CEO level pay and fresher level pay, or at least the median salary level in companies. The graph that you see on your screens from Statista shows the pay gap in the Indian IT services sector in the 10 years ended 2022. You can make out that in 2012, fresher salary for the industry, and this was likely from the top 5 or 6 companies in the IT sector, fresher level salaries were about 2,50,000, while CEO level pay was about 3.4 crore. And fast forward 10 years, fresher level salaries sort of remained in the range at 3,60,000 per year rupees, while CEO level pay increased to 31.5 crore. The argument in favor of seeing such humongous increases in CEO level pay is that the depth of experience and the vision that the CEO brings to the table is in no way comparable to the experience of a fresher. The strategy that the CEO brings along with him sets the pace for the company for the future. Mr. N.R. Narayanamurthy, one of the founders of Infosys, was recently been both lauded and criticized for his call to employees needing to work more than 70 hours per week. He had a view on this, that is the ratio of CEO level pay to the fresher level pay in a company. Back in 2012, he argued that for a country like India, and to help along such a country on its path to development and jobs for youth, he said that ratio between CEOs and fresher level pay should be not more than 20-25 times. And again, just as an example, we looked up the CEO pay for Infosys and looked at how many more times it was compared to the median pay in the company. It showed that CEO Salil Parekh, whatever he receives as pay, including stock options, etc., is 677 times the median salary for the company. What do you think? Should this change? Should the gap widen, narrow? Tell us what you think in the comment section. We'd love to hear from you. But before that, listen to what Mr. Karanth has to say. He says this gap is widened and it's for the right reasons. And as an aside, when he refers to GCCs, he's referring to global capability centers of global MNCs in whichever sector. So it could be a bank, it could be a retail giant or whatever. And if they have enabling centers for IT or BPO, business process outsourcing services, back in India, those are referred to as GCCs.
Again, I would bring the supply demand into context clearly. And as we look at the number of IT companies, the different kind of dimensions in IT that has grown, with new skills that are required, people who are more experienced, especially niche skills, are in demand. And we also have to remember that every year, India on a net, last 2 years at least, has lost close to 40,000 software engineers to overseas, right? Last year alone, if you take about 114,000 Indian software engineers have migrated between US, Canada, UK, Germany, and Middle East are the top, and Australia, the top 6 countries they have got. Of course, last year saw almost 70,000 plus software engineers coming back to India. So net, we still lost 40,000 plus, and do that for the last 2 years. So it's a significant churn of skilled talent which continues to happen. It's good and bad. Good for the reason that you look at the remittances. We had $125 billion remittance, and most of it has come from US last year, if you look at the numbers. So I guess it's good. The bad part is, it puts pressure on the skilled talent needs that India has. And obviously, some of the movements that has happened in the form of GCCs, which have come to India. A good year, India gets 50 to 80 kind of GCCs coming to India. Last year, almost 40 came. Each GCC coming to India means at least 12 to 15 CXOs they will hire. So you think about 500 CXOs, new CXOs required for India, and they will move at 30-40% salary hike, so including ESOPs and other things. So that creates that friction where the demand for them continuously is higher, and the supply obviously is struggling with the friction of the movement within India and the friction to overseas that's happening. But at the same time, the freshers are coming in lakhs, every year, and maybe in crores, if you put 1 crore as a number. So clearly, the skilled people are being more in demand compared to people at fresher level. So this gap between freshers and, skilled or senior tech executives is going to continue in India. And that is increasing the salary levels. And this argument about median salary has to be so much, is nice on paper, and I think for all of us sitting on the outside, but I think people who run companies, they want the best talent, and the best talent you have to pay.
As I was preparing for this episode, these pieces of information, these factoids were thrown open to our colleagues. I just want to understand what they had to say. A couple of them were taken aback at this wide gap between CEO level pay and fresher salaries. One argument in favor of this wide gap was that a CEO, it's not a 9 to 5 job for him or her. They have to wear their hat all the time, pressure from clients, shareholders, so on and so forth. They deserve the salary that they get. Another colleague did not quite support this because they had a family member in the IT service industry, and they said that 12 to 13 hours of a work day was rather the norm than the exception. I too have worked in the IT sector when I took a sabbatical from journalism, and I can assure you that yes, long work days are the norm rather than the exception. While we are on the topic of long work days, let's wind down this episode with a few bites that famous CEOs have given to the media over the past few years. Lakshman Narasimhan, who was recently replaced as Starbucks CEO, told Fortune magazine in a video interview that he ends his work day by 6 p.m. when he's not traveling. And if a colleague wanted even a few minutes past that hour for work, it better be important. And we've also heard Amazon founder Jeff Bezos tell us that all his strategic decisions and important meetings are held between 10 a.m. and noon, and preferably after a night's sleep.
I actually thought employees have more flexibility with remote work and work from home and great resignations all put together. Have taught enterprises that employees have more privileges than CEOs. And I would like to make a distinction between promoter CEOs and professional CEOs. I think promoter CEOs can say all these things and get away for the reason that it's their company. And I think CEOs, especially the ones which are in consumer spaces, have to really watch out for the reason that they're under the gun. And if you see the S&P 1500 trend, clearly there is a 10%, average 10% churn seen in the last 3 years for CEOs. And look at where Nike is, Lululemon, if you're Starbucks, the share prices are down consistently this year, and billions of dollars of wiped out. In that context, if you have CEOs who say that, I am, looking at work-life balance, it would be seen in a different way, especially when you have a large shadow of promoters, like Howard Schultz, like founders sitting there. It makes it a touch difficult, and I would like to believe that promoters have biases when it comes to I would say they believe in the stretch, sweat, and touch. So they would like their CEOs to slug it out. They would like to believe that they have to stretch, and most importantly, be in touch with their people. And I think that sort of whether it is Howard Schultz or Narayan Murthy, we see that kind of conversations keep coming. That you show me the stretch. And I think promoters can say those things and get away in the case of Jeff Bezos, but I'm not so sure if a professional CEO, you can make the distinction in contextually in an industry where, consumer industries are facing such kind of pressures. I believe when I look at the analyst reports, so you look at the Walmart results, which came out recently, the best ever results in recent time, best ever stock prices, best profits, and best top line, So if you compare that, and I believe Americans at this point of time are looking for value where they're mostly shopping on Amazon, Costco, and Walmart. And if you're in Starbucks or a Nike, you will be under pressure because these are not goods that you have to go and buy. You have to force customers to come there. So I think the expectation from CEOs will be completely different here. Even if you have a work-life balance, I'm not so sure promoters or shareholders would like you to say that, especially when your stock is going down.
Before you go away, here's a nugget of information for the week. Did you know that the working conditions in European factories during the Industrial Revolution were unsafe and less than humane? Workers, including men, women, and children alike, spent endless hours in the factories working. The average hours of the workday were between 12 and 14, but this was never set in stone. Quoting from chapters in the life of a Dundee factory boy, Frank Forrest is an author who's done this book. Citing this book, a University of Delaware webpage says there really were no regular hours. The clocks in the factories were often put forward in the morning and back at night, says the author. Everyone knew about this, but were afraid to speak up. And here's the quiz question of the week. What year was the Factory Act passed in Britain? The context is this act was meant to give children a more meaningful childhood and not be exploited for work in factories. And before you think we've forgotten, here's the answer to last week's quiz question, which was, when did the Western Hemisphere see futures trading and where did it begin first? The answer is Western commodity futures markets started trading in England during the 16th century, but the nation's first official commodity trading exchange, the London Metals and Market Exchange, was not established until 1877. That's all we have for you folks this week. Until we meet again, have a lovely week ahead. But do not forget to like, subscribe, and share before you go away. Thank you.